No ordinary life.
It's incredible.
We decided that Rich would tell me 48 hours after hooking up with someone.
After hooking up.
And I would tell him beforehand.
Really?
And I think we also see not just affairs, but we see other examples when monogamy's not working, when couples are unhappy in their relationship, where women, possibly in particular, feel like they're trapped in a role that they can't get out of. A role that in many ways society has set with the expectations of monogamous marriage. And so I was curious enough to be willing to question it.
You're getting another source of joy, and that's making you joyful overall.
I'm grateful. I'm so grateful for my husband that I do get to experience, as you said, that joy, that additional joy in my life outside of my marriage, very much enabled. And also, dating is fun.
It brings the spark.
Yeah, there's a spark and energy. It's quite a fun thing.
Imagine an evening in a small Austrian ski town. A river snakes around the mountains, its banks covered with pristine white snow. A couple, a British man and a red-haired American woman, they are walking on the bridge, deep in discussion. They are fast falling in love, though they have only recently started dating. They pause on the bridge, and then, out of the blue and very casually, he asks her a question that will change their lives forever. Would you, he asks, consider opening up our relationship? Welcome to No Ordinary Life. I am Ruchita Mishra, your forever obsessed with stories host. I wear many hats, and one of them is that of an author. No wonder then that on this podcast, we talk about real people and their very real stories. Today, my guest is Danielle, and I know what you're thinking. How does any woman feel when she is asked this question? Danielle has been in an open relationship for 15 years with her now husband, with whom she has 2 beautiful children. Danielle is sharing a deeply personal story in all its honesty. Her story will most likely challenge the way you see the world. So if there is one thing I ask of you, it is this. Please listen to her with an open mind. Is monogamy truly the best or just the most accepted way to love? Can you be deeply committed to someone and still seek love elsewhere? And what does it really take to make an open relationship work? So many questions. So let's dive into it. Because this is no ordinary story and this is no ordinary life. Danielle, welcome to the podcast. So Danielle, let's start from the start. Where do you come from? What was childhood like? A little bit about yourself.
Sure. Hi, I'm Danielle. I am originally from small town Texas, middle of nowhere, very small population. But I had the opportunity to live in Austria and go to high school in Austria. I then worked in Germany for a while and then Amsterdam. I've actually lived in 6 countries.
Wow.
I feel like I have seen a lot of the world, and my mind was opened when I started exploring and seeing different types of ways that people could live, especially in comparison to my very beloved small town in Texas.
And what was childhood like? What did your family consist of? Mom, dad, siblings? How was that?
I grew up in a happily monogamous
Okay.
married family.
Okay.
My parents are still together. They have been married for 45 years. I have a little sister who is one of my best friends. And we even had a golden retriever. It was a pretty idyllic childhood in the whole scheme of things.
So nothing abnormal there.
No.
Not abnormal, not normal.
I had an incredible childhood.
That's lovely to hear. And then you were in Amsterdam when you meet this handsome British man.
That's right.
How was it meeting Rich for the first time?
I had been living in Amsterdam for about a year, and this guy in my office comes over to me and starts chatting, and I think we had spoken for no more than 20 minutes. And have you ever had this where you meet someone in a room and you're just like, wow.
Yes.
Did we know each other in a past life? This chemistry is incredible. I mean, everything. He smelled good to me.
That is a very important thing.
It is important.
Yes.
And I remember meeting him and thinking, wow, he is perfect for me. We spoke for 20 minutes, and then I was getting on a flight to fly away. He lived in Toronto at that time. We were never expected to see each other again, but this was the day of Facebook Messenger. We stayed in touch, and 2 months later, we went on our first date, and we've been together ever since.
Wow. So do you think he's your soulmate?
I struggle to believe in the word soulmate.
Okay, go on.
But if I have one, he's it.
So, and we can probably talk about this later, but I read something written by you somewhere in preparation for this podcast, and you said ideal relationships are not, you don't stumble upon ideal relationships, you build them. And I thought that was so true.
I think when I grew up, I grew up with this very clear idea of what the right relationship is. And it was prolific through everything from the religion. So I grew up going to church every Sunday. I saw it in my parents' relationship. I saw it in the Disney movies that I watch. And it was this idea that someday you will meet someone and that will be it. They will be the one. They will be your perfect person, your better half. And that's all you have to do. All you have to do is find that person.
That is so true.
And when I met Rich, I thought I found him. And as I'm sure as you mentioned in the intro, he then asked me to be in an open relationship. And it shattered my idea.
That's exactly what I'm coming to next. So you've met this perfect man. You've fallen immediately in love, which is very textbook. And then he asks you that question. What was your initial reaction? How did you feel about it?
He asked me to consider being in an open relationship, and he said all the right things.
Okay.
It wasn't an ultimatum. He was just asking me to consider this idea.
Had he been in an open relationship
No.
before?
No, he'd never been in an open relationship, and I hadn't even heard of non-monogamy. I didn't know that was a thing. This was, when he asked me, it was 2010. Nowadays, I think anyone will be like, oh, I've at least heard of it. I sat there thinking, an open relationship, non-monogamy, not monogamy, what even is that?
Yeah.
And he had asked me to just consider the idea. And despite that, I was hurt. As I just said, I thought I had found my person. I thought I was already daydreaming our lives together. I thought that this was going to be it for me. And so when he asked me, would I consider being in an open relationship, I was hurt. I was angry. I was confused. I was kind of embarrassed. I had told so many people about this person that I had met. But at the same time, I was also just a teeny tiny bit curious.
I thought you were going to say that. And when you say you were embarrassed and all those feelings that came to you, and I'm thinking that's because you're suddenly feeling you're not enough in some way for this man, isn't it?
I think it's definitely that. I think that the way society is structured, we often will feel like if, someone cheats on you, somehow you weren't enough to meet their needs.
True.
Or if a divorce ends a relationship, somehow you weren't enough. And I think that has sadly become very normal in our society, and it was definitely normal 15 years ago when we were opening up. But I think the other thing around it was that made me feel embarrassed is that there's this social escalator, this societal relationship escalator that everyone goes on. You meet a person and then you move in together and then you get married and then you have the kids, and there's these very set steps where people think that's the norm, this hetero monogamous normal relationship. And so I was embarrassed to all of a sudden be doing something different.
You said that you became a little bit curious. So
Yes.
you said probably, let's give it a try. How did that?
I didn't say that right away.
What happened?
I
then?
was like, huh? For a very long time. For at least a couple of months.
Really?
The thing that made me curious is that I had seen affairs destroy relationships. And that was the thing that he had said to me. He had seen it too. And so when he brought up the idea of an open relationship, he said he didn't want to hurt me. He never wanted to be in a situation where lying or betrayal could hurt me. And he wanted to have a relationship built completely on honesty. And also he wanted to figure out how do we create a relationship that was very specific to us. That was his experience. And my perspective, I had seen that too. I had the woman I babysat for as a child was cheated on. I remember being in the house the moment she came home from a date with her husband and found out. She pulled all of his Playboy magazines and threw them in the sink, lit them on fire, and sat there crying. And even as a teenager, I knew what was happening. And at the same time, I also had a colleague at that time when Rich had asked me to be considered an open relationship. I had a colleague at the time when Rich asked me to consider an open relationship who was cheating on her husband. We see affairs all the time. We don't talk about them. And I think we also see not just affairs, but we see other examples when monogamy is not working, when couples are unhappy in their relationship, where women, possibly in particular, feel like they're trapped in a role that they can't get out of, a role that in many ways society has set with the expectations of monogamous marriage. And so I was curious enough to be willing to question it.
So how did you dip your toe into it first? What was the first thing that you tried?
The first thing we did was research. The first thing we did was research. We read Ethical Slut. We read every book we could find. Thankfully, nowadays, there's so much more literature on the topic. Tons of books, articles are out there.
Social media influencers.
Social
who can
media
be
content.
followed.
If anyone is exploring a non-monogamous relationship, come check out my content. Shameless plug. But back then, we read a lot of books. We read everything we could find. We talked to the two people that we could find that were also in open relationships. One was Rich's friend in San Francisco, and one was a couple we met at a swingers club. But to answer your question, what did we do? We took itty-bitty baby steps. Okay. We talked about it a ton. And then, it took us almost 2 years It took us 2 years to take these different baby steps. I flirted with someone and we talked about it. He flirted with someone, we talked about it. I flirted with someone in front of him, which he didn't like, and we talked about it. And then he kissed someone and we talked about it, and I kissed someone. And it was these tiny little baby steps trying to figure out how do we actually feel about this? And what are the emotions and experiences that we're getting with each other and then with other people? And how do we figure out how to balance the two?
And then this brings me to another very important question.
Yeah.
So obviously, if you are doing something on the side with another man romantically, you have your own set of emotions that you're dealing with. But when your partner is doing that and he's sharing with you that he is, because you are being honest to each other about it, I'm sure jealousy creeps in. Like, I would feel very jealous. What's going on in your head and how did you deal with that?
Jealousy is always a huge topic. So I think there's a couple things that I had to unlearn and then learn.
Oh, wow.
I had to unlearn that jealousy equates to love. How often are you with a friend and they say, oh my gosh, I was able to make my husband jealous. He still loves me. I hear it all the time. I think that many would say there's a fine line between passion and jealousy. I had to unlearn that jealousy equals love.
That is so powerful, Danielle. It isn't equal to love, is it?
It's not.
It's your own insecurity.
Exactly. And I think that was a huge lesson for me, is that once I realized that usually when I was jealous of either, my boyfriend doing something with someone else, or I was jealous of another woman, her hair, her body, what she was doing in her life, it usually is an indicator to me that I had an insecurity that I needed to figure out. And sometimes that insecurity was just me not taking good enough care of myself, or I need to work on my self-confidence. But the third thing is that jealousy can also be an indicator that something needs to be improved. I often would get jealous if my boyfriend and I weren't doing enough of the things that I want to do with him, or if our communication wasn't good, or if we were just in a moment where our relationship wasn't really strong. And so I think jealousy can also be an indicator that, hey, we need to go work on us for a minute.
And then along the way, your relationship with Rich is blossoming, going from strength to strength, whilst you are dating other people on the side. And it has reached a point where you decide to get married to each other. And so what you're doing in this relationship is very non-traditional, but you still felt the need to go ahead with something which is very traditional, which is getting married to somebody. How are the two coexisting almost?
I don't know. I should know the answer to this.
It's okay to not know, actually. Absolutely fine.
I wanted to be married. And I think that I'm excited to build a life with my now husband, Rich. He and I daydream big together. We're raising a family together. He is an incredible partner. I love that I believe I'm going to be in a partnership with this man for the rest of my life. And I did want a marriage. And I can't figure out why. Was it because I wanted the external validation from my friends and family? Is it because I wanted my grandmother to stop asking me when I was going to get married?
Or you wanted to wear the white dress?
Oh, I had a gorgeous white dress. I wanted the party.
Okay.
The party was more important than the white dress. But there was also an element of the fact that he and I are from different countries. And so I'm American, he's British and Canadian. So having the ability to live in each other's countries is important. Having shared medical coverage, having shared emergency contact information, finances, those are really important things when you're building a life with someone. And those were things that I wanted for us and I still want for our family.
And how do you, so when you're newly married and seeing other people, it's still working out fine for you guys. And you're somehow making it work.
One of the things that I think people assume when they hear the word open relationship, we are not dating all the time.
Okay.
I think that our relationship really goes through phases in terms of how often we're dating. And also what we're seeking outside of our relationships. And I think this is one of the things that most people in a relationship can relate to. When we were young, in our 20s, it was all about experiences and having the most fun possible and not missing out on anything in our 20s. And then Rich and I became new parents. And when we were new parents, we had a long phase of monogamy because we didn't have enough time to date each other, let alone anyone else. Anyone with newborn will understand this.
Yes.
I was like, I didn't even shower.
I know. Been there, done that.
Oh, God, yeah. There's nothing less attractive than a mom with, like, the baby spit up everywhere. Being like, hey, want to go on a date? This is something I haven't tried.
My boobs might be leaking.
I know, exactly. What? These might be leaking.
Oh, God. Yeah.
I do not have that experience. Yeah. Then there have been other phases where the kids and the shared family life create a lot of logistics. And there are phases where we're really stressed about our careers and times we're not, or our libidos are different, or our stress levels, or our confidence and our desirability. They're just on different levels. And I think what being in an open relationship has allowed us to do is not be completely reliant on one another to meet each other's wants and needs and expectations. We support each other unconditionally. I would say that we meet 99% of each other's wants and needs. And then we give each other space to explore things outside of our marriage.
When you're dating, is it the usual apps or is it people you meet and you like and there's a spark and you explore that? And also, do you tell them that you're married?
So I always tell someone that I'm married, although hold this thought, because as a new mom, it was harder to admit to being a mom than it was being married. More on that in a second. But I think what's been very interesting for me being in an open relationship is that my definition of dating before getting married and before opening up our relationship was very specific. You would date someone in order for that person to be a boyfriend or girlfriend and continue on the path of that relationship escalator. True. I think one of the things that has been really beautiful for me personally about being in an open relationship is all of a sudden the relationships in my life are not defined by societal
And
boundaries.
that must be liberating.
It's gorgeous.
And then you can experience a connection just for what it is.
Yes, absolutely.
As opposed to, will there be a ring on my finger 7 months down the line?
Exactly. I have beautiful friendships that have a level of romance but not intimacy. I have other friendships that have a level of physical intimacy. I have dated. I have had a boyfriend that I fell in love with. I have gotten to explore the bisexual side of myself and date women. I have had these just really wonderful relationships at different points in my life. And here's a confession, there haven't actually been that many. But I mean, I will talk to people and they're like, oh, you're in an open relationship. You must have dated hundreds of people. And I was like, oh, God, I don't have that much time.
You have 2 children. You don't have time.
Don't have that much time or energy.
And like you said, you've experienced different kinds of relationships. Have you told Rich about all of them? Is that how you... So can you talk to us a little bit about the rules that you may have between each other so that you see this through respectfully?
Course. Yes. Communication is such a huge part of it. Our communication has really evolved over the past 15 years. Any couple will say this.
Course.
Any couple that's
Because,
in a long-term
Danielle,
relationship.
we have evolved. You aren't the Danielle from 15
exactly.
years ago.
No way.
And thank God, I would imagine.
Right?
Yeah.
Can
because-
you imagine if you
No,
were still the you from
I
15
wouldn't
years
be
ago?
doing this. I wouldn't. 15-year-old. No. Whatever age I was 15 years ago. 16 maybe. No, I wasn't. Wouldn't be doing this. So
How has your communication evolved in 15 years?
I know myself better.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Me too. I can articulate very clearly like, oh, this is what I want right now. And go after it.
So then you communicate. You tell. So if you go on a date, Rich will know that you're going on that date.
Our communication rules, our communication agreements have evolved a lot in the past 15 years. Early on, when we were figuring out how to build trust, because we were still in a new relationship, we had to build trust with one another.
And this hadn't come with a manual, right? Because
No, there is no manual for this. When we established our communication rules early on, we decided that Rich would tell me 48 hours after hooking up with someone.
after hooking up.
And I would tell him beforehand.
Really? Fascinating. Why?
Well, trial and error. At first, he told me beforehand, but the first time he told me, oh, I'm planning to kiss this other person, my mind went wild.
Oh my
I was
God, I
imagining
know.
everything that they were going to do. I was at home. I was like, what is, I mean, I'm a very creative person.
Same here.
I
Fertile
had,
imagination
oh my
problem.
God, it was a cinematic Oscar worthy, thing that
Performance that did not
was
happen.
happening in my
Yes,
head.
I
Exactly.
can
Turns out
understand
that
that.
was not reality. Oh, he was off at Hugh Hefner's Playboy Mansion with like a Brazilian supermodel. That was what was happening in my head. Turns out that was not the reality. So we had a discussion around the fact that I didn't want to know details beforehand. But then he waited a longer period of time, I think maybe about a week, the second time he went on a date with someone. And then I felt like I wasn't in the know and I didn't have all the information. And so 48 hours was a really good amount of time. And nowadays, that's no longer needed. That's no longer the case. I know when he's going out. I know people that he's talking to. The communication is very easy. But I think early on, when we were really figuring this out from an emotional perspective, a trust building perspective, and a communication perspective, we had very firm, clear
Rules.
and somewhat strict rules. The first time I hooked up with someone, I was also going to tell him afterwards. But then in the moment, I felt guilty. I felt weird. I wanted him to know. So I called Rich and I told him, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to do this with an ex-boyfriend. Are you okay with that? He said, yes.
Really?
You don't need to ask me. And I was like, well, I want to. I want you to have all the information beforehand. And he said, okay. He also, we learned, liked having the information beforehand. Then he felt like he could keep me safe. Nowadays, he just has Find My Friends, like a normal, modern, 21st century husband. And so he knows where I am at all times. And again, I feel safer knowing that. And I feel more free that I'm able to tell him in advance what my plans are, what I'm thinking, and get to talk to him about it. When we talk about agreements in relationships, what's important is that they don't have to be fair. They don't have to be the same for each person in that relationship. What matters is that it works. It works for the people in that relationship.
And I think you're both coming at it from the same point of view, which is that you want the other person to feel emotionally safe and secure.
Yes.
So if you feel emotionally secure by knowing it 48 hours in advance, that's good for you. I feel safer knowing it 7 days after. That works for me.
Exactly.
So you're just trying to make each other feel emotionally safe like that.
Exactly.
It's incredible. You touched briefly on the point that you have previously been in love outside of the marriage. My question is, Danielle, how does it work between you and your husband when you are being emotionally intimate outside of the marriage? Does that impact your relationship?
It does impact the relationship, but usually for the better.
Really?
I think that, I mean, or maybe a better way is that it can be for the better and it can be for the worse. Here's a spin on this. When I am emotionally distracted by anything, whether it's an upcoming trip with my best friend or TikTok
Or this podcast.
probably not this podcast.
Okay.
But if I'm distracted by my phone and I'm not fully engaged with my husband, that also is detrimental to our relationship. We have to be careful and conscious of where our emotional energy is at different times. So, to give you an example, I have fallen in love with past boyfriends. And at first, the first time I fell in love with someone else, I was actually really scared of the experience. I was nervous that it would take away from the love that I had for my husband. And that's not what happened. I was a new mom to 2 at the time. I had just had my daughter. And one of the things that happened when I was pregnant with my daughter is I was actually scared that I somehow wouldn't love my daughter as much as I loved my son. My son was 3.5 at the time. My daughter was just born. And as most mothers know, that's not true either.
Your heart grows.
Your heart grows. It expands. You love multiple. We have the capacity to love multiple people. I loved my daughter just as much as my son. And that is what happened with a boyfriend. I loved my boyfriend, and it didn't take away from the love that I had for my husband. If anything, it was a different kind of love. I didn't love him the exact same way that I love my husband. The same way I don't love my kids, the exact same way I love my husband or my parents or my best friend or my sibling. We have this capacity for very different loves in our lives. And I think that love is infinite. Our resources, our time, and our energy are not. And so I do have to be careful with my husband and our marriage that we are always working on our relationship. And that sometimes means not texting other people when we're with each other. It means being fully present for one another. It means being unconditionally supportive. And we can do those things and have other relationships outside of our marriage, whether that's a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a best friend, anything else.
And, when you said that it sometimes makes your relationship with Rich better, I can kind of understand that because you're getting another source of joy and that's making you joyful overall.
I'm grateful. I'm so grateful for my husband that I do get to experience, as you said, that joy, that additional joy in my life outside of my marriage, very much enabled by him and our marriage style.
You mentioned your kids, and I have 2 kids like you. And
how old are your kids?
So one is 9, one is 5.
Oh my gosh.
How old are yours?
11 and 7.
Okay. So our bodies change after giving birth.
Yes.
And I don't think they're so different from pre-children and pre-pregnancy. So when you start dating again after becoming a mother, how does that feel? Because when you're just with your husband, this is partly your fault. So it's fine if you got a loose tummy, right? But when you go
These
out,
stretch marks are your fault, honey.
Yes.
You better appreciate them.
Yes. But you don't have that on the next person you're about to date.
Right,
So
yeah.
what's going on in your head? Are you feeling conscious? What's going on there then in your head?
Yeah. I talked to my husband about this recently. So when my daughter was born, I had 2 surgeries for her. An emergency surgery 2 weeks before she was delivered via cesarean. And my stomach, it looks like a tiger clawed the side of it with this. It's a war zone. Your stomach post-pregnancy is a war zone, or it looks that way, and it feels that way. I got a cesarean line. You might as well tattoo mom across the bottom of my stomach. And that was hard for me to to come to terms with that this body is now different. And I'm really proud of this body. I mean, I think all moms are. Our body made babies.
Incredible.
I'm sorry, men. What did you do today? No.
I cooked a kidney.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I cooked a kidney today. It was like I laid on the couch and watched Netflix, and I still made a baby. I still made human.
Do you know, Danielle, what I used to think? I have 2 sons. And I used to think I've got a little willy in my stomach.
Yes,
That's the most absurd thought I've ever had.
I'm growing a penis.
Yes, inside my stomach. Oh my God, that used to, you have that emoji with the blown away head?
Yes.
That was how I used to be. I was like, there is a willy.
One of my friends said, she's like, you have a penis in you at all times. I was like, oh my God.
That's true.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, that's terrifying. Did dating help you get your confidence back in some way? Because it might have.
Dating did help me get my confidence back. And my husband worded it beautifully, which was when I was postpartum and really upset and embarrassed about my body, he told me how beautiful I was all the time. He told me how gorgeous I was and how much he loved me and how much he appreciated my body. And I struggled to hear him. To your point, I was like, this is your fault. You're responsible for this.
Yeah, because he's telling you, but you're not listening to it.
I can't hear it. I can't hear it. I felt, it's like, you have to say that to me. It felt like when I was a teenager and I had acne on my face and I thought it was a good idea to dye my hair black and then the roots grew in red and my mother said, you're beautiful. And I'm like, I don't believe you.
Yeah,
you have to say that. That's what it felt like. And if he hadn't have said those things, there would have been a problem in our marriage, right?
Correct.
He has to say those things. He did say those things. He believed them, and he had to say them. When I dated someone else, and he told me I was beautiful,
he didn't have to say it.
He didn't have to say it. There was this external validation that I was like, oh, maybe this is real. Maybe this is really a beautiful, desirable body. Maybe I still got it. And I was able to hear it when my boyfriend said it to me. And it meant that when I got home and my husband said it to me as well, I could hear both of them. And that was just my personal experience. That was something that happened.
And there could be a lot of women that don't need this validation and they're confident on their own. But I hear you because I felt the same as well. It's a war zone and you're never going to be the way you were pre-kids. But anything that helps you build that confidence back is invaluable. I
don't think that women, especially women in happily monogamous relationships, need to go out and date a younger guy to feel confident about their postpartum bellies and bodies. There are other ways to achieve it. In my case, yes, I dated someone. And then a few years later, I got back into skiing, a sport that I love. I have since then become a ski instructor.
Ooh, very nice.
But that helped me gain confidence in my body. My body could do hard things. It can hike mountains. And that reignited my confidence. I think a lot of women take up dance and exercise and get that opportunity to feel confident in their bodies again. I traveled solo to the Atacama Desert last month. That gave me confidence. Yes. So you're right. Because you can do it. You're like, I traveled to a desert. I can make babies and travel to a desert. What did you do today? How cool am I? Yes, exactly. So yes, you're right. I mean, we're not suggesting that anybody in a happily monogamous relationship needs to date a younger guy outside of the marriage to feel confidence, but that's what happened to you. It's what happened to me. Yeah. And I think that it is okay to seek these validations and experiences outside of a marriage. Because like I said, my husband told me I was beautiful. He meant it. But I couldn't quite hear it the way that I needed to. I needed to do something outside of my marriage to get to regain my confidence again. And that's okay. That's okay. So there was one more question I had, Danielle. Like you said, you've fallen in love outside of the marriage a couple of times. If this happens to Rich, and I don't know if it has or it hasn't. But if it has, how did you feel about it? Wasn't it hard to see your husband in love with somebody else? Yeah, it was. So I think I was the one that told him, hey, honey, I think you might be falling in love. At the same time, when Rich first experienced kind of falling in love with someone else, that was when both of our children were a little bit older. But he and I were deeply entangled in life, the logistics, the finances, raising 2 children. Our dates consisted of talking about scheduling and drop-offs, and no matter what, some point in time we would probably talk about mortgage payments and car payments and kids' education, and our lives are so entangled. I love that. I love that we have this really deeply entangled, strong partnership together. But it means that it's hard for us to be lighter, more carefree versions of ourselves with one another. And he got to experience that with this other woman. And he got to be a lighter, carefree version of himself with her. And I got jealous that she got to experience that version of him, that version that I kind of fell in love with probably in the first place. The flip side of it is that I get to experience this as well. I get to be the lighter, more carefree version of myself with other people. Not just boyfriends, not just girlfriends, but best friends and on sister family trips. I get to be these lighter versions of myself, usually when we're not deeply entangled in the logistics of this life that we have built. I love that we have both. I love that we get to have both. I don't think you need to I don't think couples need to be non-monogamous in order to have both. It works for us. I think when I was able to look at that and realize my husband is falling in love and I'm happy that he gets to have that experience, then the jealousy kind of went away because I was so happy. I want my husband to live the biggest, best, most beautiful version of his life. And he absolutely wants the same for me. And that's really special.
In a very weird way, it's almost sounds to me like you love him so much that you're okay for him to also find love outside of the marriage.
I am.
It's fascinating.
But it's also because our relationship is so stable and strong. I think that that's one of the other things to keep in mind. Oftentimes couples are considering exploring an open relationship, and it's usually to try and solve something in their marriage.
Fill a void.
Yeah, to fill a void. And maybe that works. I don't often recommend it. I think one of the reasons we're able to be in an open relationship is because our foundation is really strong and because we are constantly working to reinforce the foundation of our marriage.
It's very easy to assume that an open relationship is only about sex and indulgence.
Yeah,
But
of course.
it isn't.
No.
At least not in your case.
Not in my case. And also, dating is fun.
It brings the spark.
Yeah, there's a spark and energy. It's quite a fun thing.
Here is my next question for you. Do you think in being married to Rich, you are more free sexually, emotionally, spiritually than you would have been were you say single? Do you recommend open relationships?
I don't often recommend open relationships.
Very interesting. Why?
Well, I think going back to my previous point, I think most people when they come to me and ask about an open relationship, they're usually trying to solve for something else.
True.
So my first thing that I will often say to people exploring non-monogamy for the first time or considering asking their partner to be in an open relationship, I will tell them to know their why. Why do you want to be in an open relationship? Is it because you want more experiences and excitement in your life? Is it because you and your partner have different libidos? Is it because you think you might be bisexual and want to explore that side? What is your why? And then go to your partner with the why. Don't go to them with an open relationship, because by doing so, you're going to them with the solution. You're saying, this is the thing that I want to do. Here it is. Versus if you go to your partner with the problem, such as I want to experience something else, I want to have more sexual experiences, I want to explore this side of my sexuality, or something else. I just gave 3 examples related to sex, but they don't have to be. When you go to your partner with the problem, they become part of the solution. Because an open relationship is a solution, but it's very rarely the only solution. It could be other things to ignite change in a relationship.
And also, Danielle, you speak so openly about this part of your life. Does it impact your day-to-day life? So do people judge? Because before I met you, I had certain assumptions about an open relationship, and I genuinely thought it's all about getting a sexual rush. But it has been quite eye-opening to talk to you and read stuff that you sent to me, because it is that, but it is based on a very rock-solid foundation of a very stable marriage.
I think so.
So but that's what you would think the first time you hear of somebody being in an open relationship. That's a natural reaction or assumption. Do you see that? Do you see people reacting differently to you because they know you're in an open relationship?
Yes and no.
Really? Okay.
So because I've been in an open relationship for 15 years, in many ways, the people that know me well and know of Rich and I's relationship, they've seen our relationship stand the test of time. When I first told my friends 14 years ago, they were extremely judgmental. They told me that I was being used, that, it was never going to work out, that he was just waiting until he found someone better. They told me all of these things, and that was really hard to hear. When we told my parents, they said similar things. They were worried about the safety of the kids. They were worried about, that our relationship, that we were opening up our relationship to unnecessary risks. And I think when you hear these things from friends and family, it's really hard. It really hits hard because they genuinely care about you. They genuinely want the best for you. I get a lot more hatred on social media than anywhere else. And I think that one of the reasons that you and I were able to talk about this so in depth is because we had the time to do so. One of the things that happens with social media is that my videos that I share, they're a minute long. There's only so much you can talk about when you only have a minute to do so. You can't really change anyone's minds. And so I have given up on trying to change someone's mind. If someone wants to be in a monogamous relationship and that's what works for them, great, amazing. I'm so happy that they have found a style that works for them. There are other people that are exploring non-monogamy and trying to figure out how to do so and looking for examples. And I think that that's all I hope to be out in the world, is an example of a non-monogamous relationship. And I do get judged online, particularly because there are so many preconceived notions about an open relationship. I hope that I can change them one mind at a time.
What does commitment mean to you, if not exclusivity? Because that's one of the biggest pillars of a traditional view anybody would have of a relationship.
I think that commitment for us means building a life together. I'd already said that daydreaming big together, supporting each other unconditionally. And those would be the same things that most couples would say, whether they're monogamous or open or in a throuple or platonic co-parents. So many people would say that. My definition of commitment is wanting my partner to live the biggest, best version of their life. And I also think it's my definition of love. I think that there's no better way to love someone than to help them live the life that they want. And I feel very fortunate that in my husband and I's case, we do so much together. We do most things together, and we still give each other freedom to explore outside of our marriage. It's an incredible combination of both stability and security, as well as adventure and excitement and mystery. And that's a pretty good life.
Because this is so out there, this aspect of your life, do you worry that your kids will be exposed to it any earlier than they should be, or before you're able to talk to them about it? Does that
I do worry about this, absolutely. Our kids, I want to be the one to explain it to both of our children. Our son is already aware. So our son is aware that we're in an open relationship. He has asked us tons of questions. Our son has asked us a few questions, but he sees, both our kids see how much we love each other, see how much we care for one another. They're not worried about us. If anything, my son, we told my son about our open relationship. We told him that we go on dates with other people. And his first question was, well, can 3 people get married? I was like, well, not legally, but we like the way your head's going in this one. However, right now, our kids only see it through us and talk to us about it. My daughter, I don't feel like it's age appropriate to tell my daughter yet. We will tell her when we feel like it is the right time for her. I am worried about what other people are going to tell my kids about our relationship and about our marriage, because that will most likely happen, and that scares me. No one else knows my marriage. No one else but you and your husband know your marriage. No one else, like, the only people that know your relationship are the people that are in it. And I think that it is a real shame that other people will talk about my relationship to my children.
But can I tell you something?
Yeah.
They might say whatever they want to say, but like you said, you and your husband know your relationship the best. The only other two people who are seeing you for very long periods of time are your children. So whatever they might say, they are seeing two people deeply in love.
Mm-hmm.
And I think children are so tuned in that somebody could come and tell them this is all wrong, but they could go back and say, but they're in love.
I hope so. I hope that's the case.
I think that will be the case. Okay. Has being in an open relationship changed or altered your view of love?
Yes, I think being in an open relationship has altered my view of love. And I think primarily, going back to what I'd said earlier, is that I feel like love is such a diverse emotion. I think when I was in my 20s and growing up, I was like, oh, I have one way to love. There's only one way to love. And I think now when I think about love, it does feel like I have so many different kinds of love in my life. Not just platonic love that I have for siblings and family members and best friends, but I have these different types of love. I have these different types of loves that I've had for boyfriends and girlfriends and for my husband and non-boyfriends, friends with benefits, and people that came in passing. And it's just been, I don't think I've loved anyone that just came in passing, but I have this incredible, diverse range of loves and experiences in my life. And I think that has changed how I think about love. How do you think about love?
You're throwing it back at me.
Yeah, I'm throwing it back at you.
For me, Danielle, love is peace. And if you have that one person with whom you can feel at peace, whatever that definition of peace might be, whatever comes with it, but if you feel at peace, that's it for me.
Oh, I love that. It almost is similar to what I was describing when I described like foundation, that like really solid, stable foundation. I see it as like the bottom of a really strong building, but I love that you see it as this peacefulness.
Yes. And I think that some people feel like home, and a home can have 2 rooms, or it can have 5 rooms, or it can have 10 bathrooms.
Right.
It can look different, but if it feels like home, it's home.
Yeah.
And which is why I really wanted to talk to you also, because I find myself, as I'm getting older, becoming more and more non-judgmental about how you find love, because I feel love transforms your life. So
absolutely.
For any person, however they find it, if they're able to find it, for me, almost that is more important.
Yeah.
Because it just changes your life. And if you don't have love in your life, it's like a withering flower. Like your life is akin to a withering flower. And
absolutely.
I don't want that for anybody.
I love the way you term this. I love the way you describe, because the biggest loves in my life, the ones that have had the biggest impact, have been my husband and my kids. I mean, those were the loves that transformed me. Those really big, wow, yeah. Those were the loves that transformed my life.
So I feel like whatever your path might be to getting that love, and however it might look like, that's fine. But if you have that, your experience of life as a whole becomes very different. And I also strongly believe that we have very little time on the planet, very little time. So why not get that love?
And experiences.
And experience it. And Danielle, I have to say this, that I see a lot of people, and the reason I started podcasting was because people talk a lot to me about their lives. So I end up knowing, and very often I hear the statement that, oh, I don't know why I'm telling you this, because they've told me a lot of things. Yeah. So being in that privileged position where I'm the secret keeper of a lot of people, even random people I meet, I see a lot of lives looking very incomplete. And by that I mean that they haven't found love. And even if they're married, it does not mean that they're in love. And they have secrets from their partners. Their partners don't know anything about them. They don't know what they're doing with their days. They don't know more importantly, what's going on in their mind and their hearts. which is why I found your story so fascinating, that I could very easily judge you and say, oh my God, she's in a, polyamorous relationship. But you know your husband very well. He knows you very well. And I'm not advocating for any way of loving, but I just feel like you have an incredible love. And there are very few people who have that. What you do with it and how you explore other things is almost secondary to the whole thing. But the fact that you have that love is, you're very lucky and you're very blessed.
I do feel very lucky and I do feel blessed. And it breaks my heart to hear the stories, because I've heard them too that you're describing, where someone feels like they can't tell their partner everything, that they're hiding a part of themselves from their partner.
They can't be themselves.
They can't be themselves
in front of their partner.
And I've had phases of that in my marriage as I was sort of rediscovering myself. Sometimes you have to figure out who you are before you can express that aloud to anybody else. But I do feel a tremendous strength in the fact that I can tell my husband anything. That I feel like at this point in time, I could bring up anything to him. And he'd be like, okay. Just like when we opened up our relationship 15 years ago, we'll figure it out. We'll build something specific to us. We will figure this out together. And we will probably be stronger for it. And I think most couples are. When you truly love someone and you want the most and the best for them, you usually will figure that out together. And again, has nothing to do with non-monogamy.
Do you know what? I actually really mean that, Danielle. Oh, Danielle. I'm getting emotional. Contrary to what you might have expected, Danielle's journey has been one of unlearning, growth, and deep emotional exploration. The discussion has challenged me to rethink love and commitment. At the heart of it, maybe the real question isn't about monogamy versus non-monogamy, though one is far more accepted than the other, but about how we show up for love, how we navigate jealousy, insecurity, and the ever-changing nature of human connection. Because in the end, whether we choose one person or many, the real commitment is understanding ourselves and loving with intention. So I leave you with a question that has been haunting me throughout the recording of this podcast with Danielle. And the question is this. I know so many traditionally married couples who are lying to each other, cheating, keeping secrets. But here we have a relationship that defies societal norms, but is honest and loving. Who is to say which one is right, and who are we to decide that? This was No Ordinary Story. This is No Ordinary Life. Thank you for watching. See you next time.